We've all felt that gut-wrenching moment. You're staring at your phone, waiting for a text back. 1 hour passes, then 2. Your stomach tightens. They're ignoring me, you think. Maybe they found someone better. Before you know it, you're sending that embarrassing double text, then triple text, hating yourself for being so needy but unable to stop. Or maybe you're on the other side. The moment someone gets too close, too intense, you feel that suffocating pressure. You pull away, ghost them, sabotage the relationship before they can hurt you first. These patterns repeat so predictably, like some twisted relationship script you never agreed to follow. And here's the truth most people never realize. That script was written when you were still in diapers. That overwhelming anxiety when your partner doesn't respond. That panic when someone gets too close. According to Freud, it traces back to a habit you developed before you could even talk. A way you learned to comfort yourself when your needs weren't being met. Come on, how could something I did as a baby possibly affect my dating life now? It sounds far-fetched. Yet modern relationship therapists witness this exact pattern playing out in their offices every single day. That childhood habit, the one you don't even remember having, has become your relationship blueprint. It's the invisible force making you choose the wrong partners, react in ways that push people away, or cling so tightly you suffocate the connection. The good news is clear. Once you recognize this pattern, you can finally break free of it. But first, we need to name the childhood habit that's been silently sabotaging your love life all along. Let's cut through the noise about Sigmund Freud. Yes, many of his ideas have been debunked. No, you don't secretly want to marry your parent of the opposite sex. We can leave that outdated thinking in the past where it belongs. But Freud got one thing absolutely right. The experiences we have as children shape who we become as adults. This isn't just psychological theory anymore. It's backed by modern neuroscience. Our early childhood experiences literally wire our brains in ways that affect how we connect with others for the rest of our lives. Freud believed we develop through stages: oral, anal, phallic, latency, and genital. Weird terms, I know. But that first stage, the oral stage, is where our story begins. From birth to around 18 months, babies experience the world primarily through their mouths. Sucking, biting, chewing. These aren't just ways to get food. They're how babies explore, and crucially, how they comfort themselves when distressed. Think about it. A crying baby gets a pacifier, instantly soothed. A toddler sucks their thumb when scared, immediately calmer. This is powerful stuff. According to Freud, most people move through this stage naturally, but some get stuck there, what he called a fixation. This happens when your needs during this critical period aren't met consistently or appropriately. Maybe your parents were wonderful, loving people who simply couldn't always respond immediately when you cried. Maybe your mother had postpartum depression. Maybe your family faced economic hardship or other stresses. No blame here, just reality. When your needs weren't met, you developed coping mechanisms. And this is where that childhood habit emerged, the one that's now wreaking havoc on your adult relationships. The childhood habit we're talking about? Oral fixation. Not exactly what you expected, right? But hear me out. Oral fixation isn't just about the obvious physical behaviors, thumb sucking, nail biting, or chewing on pencils, though these are common manifestations. It's about how you learn to self-soothe when your external world wasn't meeting your needs. When a baby's cries aren't consistently answered, they learn to comfort themselves, often through their mouth. That thumb becomes their constant companion. That blanket corner gets chewed to shreds, and something profound happens in their developing brain. They learn that external sources of comfort are unreliable, but self-soothing works. Research suggests around 75 to 95% of infants develop some form of self-soothing behavior. About 30% of children continue thumb sucking beyond age 4, and a surprising number, around 10% of adults, still engage in some form of oral fixation behavior under stress. But even if you don't currently bite your nails or chew pen caps, That early pattern created a template for how you handle emotional needs and intimate relationships. Your brain formed neural pathways that said, don't depend too much on others, find comfort within yourself, or control situations so you don't get hurt. These aren't conscious thoughts. They're deeply ingrained emotional responses that feel completely natural to you, so natural that you probably don't even question them. The most insidious part, this childhood habit transforms as you grow up. It stops being about your thumb and starts being about how you handle vulnerability, intimacy, and need. And that's where your love life starts getting complicated. Let's get real about how this childhood pattern is playing out in your bedroom, in your texts, in those tearful late-night fights. If your oral stage needs weren't consistently met, you became one of two types in relationships, the chaser or the runner. The chaser, that's you staring at your phone, heart pounding with each minute your text goes unanswered. You send another message, check if they've been online, wonder if they're with someone else. The pit in your stomach grows. By the time they respond with a casual, "Sorry, was busy," you're already emotionally exhausted, alternating between relief and resentment. You need constant reassurance. You analyze every word, every tone shift. You feel alive when they're attentive and shattered when they're not. You become the relationship detective, checking their social media, wondering who that new coworker is, asking subtle questions to ensure they still love you. Not because you want to be controlling, but because underneath it all runs a current of terror. If I'm not constantly vigilant, they'll leave me. This isn't love. This is your childhood oral fixation transformed into relationship hunger that can never be satisfied. Then there's the runner. Intimacy feels like quicksand to you. The closer someone gets, the more you feel the urge to escape. That amazing first month of dating turns sour the moment they leave a toothbrush at your place. Their good morning texts start to irritate you. Their emotional needs feel like demands. You find yourself inventing reasons to be busy, criticizing them for small annoyances, picking fights that create convenient distance. Deep down, you're not actually afraid of commitment. You're afraid of need, of vulnerability, of depending on someone who might not be there tomorrow. So you keep one foot out the door, always. You perfect the slow fade, the "it's not you, it's me" speech. You convince yourself you just haven't met the right person, when really, you're terrified of what happens when you actually do. This too comes from those early months when your cries weren't always answered, and you learned that needing others too much leads to disappointment. Some people swing wildly between these extremes, desperately clingy one moment, coldly distant the next. These are the relationships that feel like addiction, intense highs followed by devastating lows. The damage is profound and far-reaching. Your relationships are shorter, less satisfying, more conflicted. When you do stay together, it's often for the wrong reasons: fear, convenience, shared history, rather than genuine connection. The anxiety, depression, and loneliness that come with these attachment wounds color everything. Not just your romantic life, but your friendships, your work relationships, your relationship with yourself. Consider Jordan, who came to therapy after yet another breakup. Accomplished, charming, with no shortage of interested partners. Yet every relationship followed the same devastating script. The intoxicating beginning, when attention was abundant. Then the creeping insecurity as the relationship normalized. The escalating demands for time, attention, reassurance. The accusations, the partner's eventual emotional exhaustion. The tearful ending, the cycle of shame and determination to do better next time. But next time was always the same, because Jordan was bringing the same wounded child into each relationship. Or Alex, perpetually single, despite genuinely wanting partnership. The pattern was so predictable, it would be comical if it weren't so painful. 3 months of connection, growing intimacy, things going well. Then the partner says those 3 dangerous words: "I love you." And something in Alex freezes. Suddenly, invisible flaws become glaring problems. The sex loses its appeal. The cute habits become irritating quirks. Within weeks, Alex ends things, feeling both relief and a hollow sadness. At 40, Alex has a trail of baffled ex-partners and a growing fear of dying alone. These aren't character flaws or bad luck. They're the adult expression of that childhood oral fixation, that early decision your brain made about whether others could be trusted to meet your needs. And the cruelest part, the very behaviors you're using to protect your heart are exactly what keep breaking it over and over again. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. So let's talk about how this shows up in real life, not in bullet points, but in the messy, beautiful complexity of human connection. For the anxiously attached, your oral fixation has become emotional hunger that's never quite satisfied. You're the one who feels a rush of dopamine when your phone buzzes with their name. The same dopamine hit that a cigarette gives a smoker, that a drink gives an alcoholic. The relief is physical, immediate, and temporary, because soon you need another hit of reassurance. When they pull away even slightly, your body goes into panic mode. Your heart races. Your thoughts spiral. You might even feel physically ill. This isn't dramatic. It's your nervous system responding exactly as it did when you were an infant, and your cries went unanswered too long. Back then, separation could mean death. Your adult brain still operates on that primitive logic. You find yourself doing things you swore you never would, reading their messages, creating elaborate scenarios about their faithfulness, picking fights because conflict is better than silence, staying in relationships that diminish you because the alternative, being alone, feels like drowning. Many anxiously attached people even maintain their literal oral fixations into adulthood. They smoke, they overeat when stressed, they bite nails, they grind teeth at night. The mouth remains their go-to source of comfort when their attachment system is activated. For the avoidantly attached, your oral fixation transformed into extreme self-sufficiency. You learned early that dependency leads to disappointment, so you built elaborate defenses against needing anyone. When relationships start getting serious, you feel a physical discomfort, a tightness in your chest, a need to escape. It's not a choice. It's automatic, like pulling your hand from a hot stove. You're drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable because they're safe. They won't ask too much of you. When you do find yourself with someone loving and attentive, you find ways to create distance, working late, starting arguments, focusing on their flaws. Anything to maintain the emotional space you need to feel secure. Your friends might call you emotionally unavailable or afraid of commitment. But what they don't understand is how threatening real intimacy feels to you. It's not that you don't want love, it's that love has always felt dangerous. Many avoidant types channel their oral fixation into work. They stay busy, productive, in control. They might drink too much, not for the intoxication, but for the ritual of it, the glass they can rely on at 6 p.m. when the workday ends. Control is their comfort. The most telling evidence of these patterns is simple: repetition. The same relationship dynamic playing out with different partners. The same arguments, the same fears, the same endings. Think about your last 3 relationships. Were there common themes in how they unfolded, in how they ended? That's not coincidence. That's your attachment system running its familiar program. Your triggers are unique to you, but they often center around the same fundamental fears. For the anxious type, anything that hints at abandonment sets off alarms. Delayed responses, changed plans, their attention diverted elsewhere. For the avoidant type, anything that suggests entrapment does the same. Talk of the future, expectations of regular communication, emotional demands. These triggers activate your nervous system before your conscious mind even registers what's happening. Your heart rate changes, your breathing shifts, your thinking narrows. And before you know it, you're reacting from that wounded child place rather than your adult self. The first step toward change is simply noticing. Becoming the observer of your own patterns. Not judging them, not immediately trying to fix them, but developing a curious awareness about when they arise and what sets them off. Now comes the part that matters most: how to free yourself from this cycle. Not through simplistic steps or bullet-pointed plans, but through the messy, non-linear work of rewiring your most fundamental relational instincts. First, embrace this truth. Healing attachment wounds takes time. These patterns developed before you had language. They're embedded in your body, your nervous system, your unconscious expectations. You won't transform them overnight, but with consistent attention, you can change them profoundly. Start by developing awareness in real time. That moment when your chest tightens because they haven't texted back in 3 hours. The instant when your partner expresses a need and you feel the urge to pull away. These are your windows into the pattern. Notice the physical sensations first, the racing heart, the tight throat, the shallow breathing. Then the thoughts that follow. Then the actions you're tempted to take. Simply creating space between trigger and reaction begins rewiring your brain. Name what's happening. This is my attachment system activating. This feels like life or death, but it's actually just old wiring firing up. Interrupt the automatic response. When the urge to send that desperate text arises, put your phone in another room for 20 minutes. When you feel the pull to cancel plans because your partner is getting too close, stay with the discomfort a little longer before acting. Small moments of choosing differently create new neural pathways. Remember, this all began with how you comforted yourself. So develop new self-soothing rituals that don't reinforce your old patterns. If you're anxiously attached, resist the urge to seek immediate reassurance from your partner. Instead, take a walk, call a friend, write in a journal. Remind yourself of past situations where your fears weren't realized. If you're avoidantly attached, resist the urge to distance yourself when intimacy intensifies. Breathe through the discomfort. Share what you're experiencing with your partner. Stay engaged, even when every instinct tells you to shut down or run. Communication becomes your most powerful tool, not through practiced scripts, but through raw honesty about your experience. The anxious might say, "When you don't respond for hours, my brain tells me you're pulling away. I know that's my old pattern talking, but I'm struggling right now. Can you help me understand what's happening for you?" The avoidant might share, "When you talk about our future, I feel panicky. It's not because I don't care about you. It's an old fear of being trapped. Can we take this conversation slowly so I can stay present with you?" This kind of vulnerable communication feels terrifying precisely because it goes against your protective patterns, but it's also where real connection happens. The most powerful healing often comes through relationships themselves. With a partner who's patient enough to respond differently to your patterns, you create corrective emotional experiences. The anxiously attached person learns that temporary distance doesn't mean abandonment. The avoidantly attached person discovers that closeness doesn't equal suffocation. For many, therapy becomes an essential part of this journey. A skilled therapist, particularly one trained in attachment work, provides both the insight and the safe relationship needed to rewire these patterns. In the therapeutic relationship itself, you'll activate your old patterns and have the opportunity to work through them in real time. Consider Emma, who realized her desperate need for reassurance was suffocating her relationships. Her healing wasn't linear. There were nights she still sent those panicked texts when her boyfriend was out with friends, but increasingly, she caught herself before acting. She developed rituals for self-soothing, wrapping herself in a weighted blanket, practicing breathing exercises, calling a friend instead of her partner when anxiety struck. 6 months in, her boyfriend noticed the difference. "You seem more present," he told her. "Like you're actually with me instead of constantly worrying about us." The relationship that had been on the brink of ending began to flourish. Or Michael, who at 45 had never maintained a relationship longer than a few months. His work began with simply staying present when the familiar urge to flee arose. When his new partner wanted to leave a toothbrush at his place, and he felt that familiar panic, he shared his fear instead of making an excuse. "This brings up a lot for me," he admitted. "Can we talk about what this means for both of us?" That conversation, awkward, vulnerable, real, was the first of many where he chose presence over distance. A year later, they moved in together, working through each wave of his avoidance with increasing skill. The most profound shift happens when you realize this. The pattern that's causing so much pain was originally an act of self-protection. It helped you survive emotionally when you were too small to understand what was happening. You can honor that child part of you while also recognizing that the strategy that helped you then is hurting you now. This compassionate awareness creates space for something new to emerge. That childhood habit, The way you learn to comfort yourself when your needs weren't perfectly met has been influencing your love life in ways you never realized. Your oral fixation evolved into an attachment pattern that's been running on autopilot, creating the same relationship problems over and over again. But here's what matters. Now you know. And knowing changes everything. You aren't doomed to repeat this pattern forever. You aren't fundamentally flawed or unlovable. You developed an adaptive strategy as a child that simply outlived its usefulness. The work ahead isn't easy. There will be moments when your old patterns feel overwhelming, when the anxiety of an unanswered text or the discomfort of growing intimacy seems unbearable. In those moments, remember, this is just a pattern. It feels like reality, but it's just one possible interpretation of reality, shaped by your earliest experiences. With awareness, compassion, and consistent practice, you can develop a new pattern, one that allows for both healthy independence and secure connection. One that lets you stay present during relationship challenges instead of reverting to anxious clinging or avoidant distance. Imagine moving through your dating life without that constant fear of abandonment. Imagine building a relationship where intimacy feels comforting rather than threatening. Imagine breaking the cycle that's kept you stuck. This is possible. People do it every day. With each small choice to respond differently, you're literally rewiring your brain, creating new neural pathways that will eventually become your new normal. Your childhood habit doesn't have to keep ruining your love life. You can acknowledge its origins, understand its impact, and finally, beautifully, let it go. The relationship you've always wanted isn't just possible. Now that you understand what's been standing in your way, it's waiting for you to claim it.